Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get sent a stage to voice your opinions and thoughts. This is ET-Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight on Influencer, we bring you a conversation with Cocoon Fine Drugs, and on Small Giants tonight, we're bringing the story of Mangalam Organic Foods. On Influencer tonight, we bring you a segment of an interview that I did earlier with Ayush Chaudhary, the young founder of Cocoon Fine Drugs. I spoke to him about how the carpet industry here in India is changing, whether GST has had any impact on the business here, as well as what the export market is looking like for this industry. Take a look. Thank you very much for being with us here tonight in our studios. We've had you on previously to talk about what's really happening in the industry. But today I want to talk about specifically what's happening in your company, what's happening at Cocoon Drugs. So thanks once again for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking about the company. Where did the idea come about? What the journey has been like? And very briefly, maybe some of the biggest opportunities and challenges you've seen.
Sure. So our parent company is close to about 35 years into the carpet business, manufacturing, exporting. We've been exporting all over the world for about 35 years. Major carpets typically being US, Western Europe, China, Russia, South Africa, and so on. About 9 or 10 years back, we felt there was an opportunity in India. People were spending a lot more energy, a lot more resources on doing up their homes very, very nicely. And the outlets to do something like that were very limited. And that's when we went retail with our brand Cocoon. We started with our first store in Bombay, and now obviously we're present in Bangalore, Calcutta, and also available online to ship worldwide.
Okay, is it still a very niche market though in India? Is it, I'm trying to understand how a brand like yours tries to broad base the product.
Sure, I agree. I think it is still early days for this. It is still a fairly specific market, and I only see this market growing as more and more people in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities getting more and more conscious on how to do their homes up nicely. As more sort of mass sort of brands coming in, like an IKEA or Pepperfry and Urban Ladder sort of doing it through their online channels. So I do see the category as a whole becoming bigger, and then of course as the category becomes bigger, the business and the percentage for each player within the space also gets bigger as well.
Okay. So I'll come back to talk about some of the e-commerce players you're talking about and essentially an online strategy.
Sure.
But I want to talk about the market.
Sure.
Research reports by IBF, something that I was reading up, indicate
Sure.
that last year the
Right.
market was about 1.45 billion, which you wouldn't have assumed in a
Right.
country like India, especially if a large percentage of that is being consumed by the domestic market. How's the
Right.
market growing? What's going to help that growth?
Obviously, I think the numbers that you're talking about are probably carpet industry specific. Major chunk of that is actually still exports. I would assume 98, 99% of that business is probably still exports. So the domestic consumption still remains a very small part of what the carpet industry manufactures. But yeah, I think the growth over the last year or so has come in a big way because the exports markets have gotten a whole lot better. Europe, UK, US, I think went through a phase of uncertainty, currency fluctuations, and so on. A lot of those factors have settled in. So I think that's sort of been a big driver of growth in the last year or so in the carpet industry. I mean, with the local markets, we've obviously seen a bit of change, a little bit of uncertainty with demonetization and GST, which now is sort of settling in. So that probably saw a bit of stagnation, but I do see as these things settle down, 2018 sort of being a big year for consumption.
Talking about the domestic market, I want to talk about the role of the government, particularly when it comes to handicrafts, homegrown products, traditional handicrafts, etc. We were recently in Jaipur, where a lot of people give us to understand that with GST, the industry is being hurt. Most industries, in fact, are saying that in the short term, yes, there's a bit of uncertainty, but the traditional handicrafts industry is for the first time facing these kind of taxations and facing this kind of facing these kind of taxes. Your comments on GST? What is the government doing? What would you like to see from the government?
Sure, you're right. I think there was a lot of feedback because the handmade, handicraft, textile sort of spaces are fairly unorganized is not the word, but fairly fragmented as across the supply chain. So whether where your raw materials are coming in from, where the actual manufacturing is happening, it's not as straightforward as raw materials come in. It's a factory and everything's being made. So I think with GST coming in, things became slightly more complicated because that's not something that this space has seen previously. With that said, I think it's an opportunity for all players to get organized, to get more system and process based. And I think it allows greater scalability for a lot of these players going forward as well. So in short run, of course, rules of the game have changed and people need to sort of work on getting better. But I do see value in this going forward in terms of scaling up, whether it is domestically or internationally. Systems and processes are what are going to drive scale going forward.
So we started this conversation by, me asking you about what some of the biggest challenges were. Yes,
Correct.
Right now you achieve scale, but
Correct.
I'd like for you to talk to our viewers about what some of your initial challenges were and how
Sure.
you overcome those,
Sure.
and therefore advice for small businesses in your industry
Right.
based on that.
I think looking at today's scenario, the government policies as they are, things are a whole lot better compared to the 80s. So I think anyone looking to get into the space, manufacturing and the export side, major pieces of advice would probably be embrace technology. I think in today's day and age, technology must be adopted at different levels. For marketing, probably consider social media as well. That's very, very important. I think number two is even though this is a traditional art, it does not mean the product has not evolved. I think that's something very key to keep in mind. So as you go into manufacturing and designing a new product range for yourself as a new manufacturer, keep in mind you don't have to do what's been done all these years. Keep in mind that there's a new age consumer that's out there and is probably looking for something that has not already been done. That was the idea when we started Cocoon as well, and that's what's paid off rich dividends for us. So as a new company, as a young company, I think those would be my two bits of advice.
Okay, I want to go back to what you were saying in terms of technology. Now, we have a call-in show on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Right.
And most small businesses that call us concerning technology say that we don't have the funds when it comes to the use of technology. Yes, there's
Right.
stuff like, the cloud, SaaS, etc.
Sure.
But even the use of technology is definitely going to come at a cost. And for a
Right.
small business, that would possibly also mean hiring someone
Right.
who's technologically savvy.
Right.
Your advice?
I think the cost of adopting technology would be far lesser than probably having a sales and a marketing team that is reaching out to the world, traveling. Those expenses would probably be far
Get
greater
sort of
than
offset in that sense.
Absolutely. So I think this is an easier way. I think if you treat this as part of your marketing cost or as part of your efficiency, achieving efficiency cost, I think that's how you need to look at it rather than probably the other way around.
Okay, so you were saying you've built a brand for yourself, of course.
Right.
2 or 3 things that you would want to tell our viewers about how you've created that USP and how you've maintained and managed that brand image.
Sure. Like I said, I think it ties back to the previous my previous response. It's very important to identify your niche.
Yeah.
What is your product's USP? So is it designer and very, very exclusive? Is it something that's more mass, easy price points? Or is it an entry-level product? So I think once you've identified that, it's important that you target your communication around that product. Okay. And market your story accordingly as well. So I think that was something that we were very clear with from day one. And we have not wavered from that story as time has gone on. Yes, I think there has been an evolution on how we want to tell that story better, whether it is through greater information or through social media or through videos that we are shooting at our manufacturing facilities. The storytelling methods have probably changed, but I think the USP has sort of remained constant over time. So I think stick to the USP, stick to the story that you had at the back of your mind when you created that brand, and run with it and let it sort of evolve as time goes on.
So the government is talking about Make in India and Skill India.
Right.
How do companies like yours fit in with that program?
Right.
How easy or hard is it for you to find skilled laborers?
Right.
How often do you undertake training for your workers?
Interesting question. I think Make in India is and has been a very important aspect of the space that we're in, especially handicrafts, textile. these spaces have traditionally seen some really, really good work coming out of India. And I think equality-wise, these spaces, when you go out in the global markets, you'll see that India dominates. With that said, the government in the textile space on their own have also taken a lot of skill programs. We employ close to about 9 to 10,000 people across the different supply chains of manufacturing carpets.
Sure.
So a lot of these people have been with us for almost 25, 30 years, and they've seen the growth of the company, and they've sort of grown with the company as well. So I think it's a combination of things. But going forward, yes, I think these sort of training efforts are important. Because I think what's happening is the younger lot in probably rural areas or children of skilled laborers are possibly not very excited by these traditional crafts. They're happier working on the infrastructure side or on the IT side, move to the cities and so on. I think it sort of has to be exciting, interesting across the channel for everyone to sort of drive in newer and newer people into the space.
Okay, that's an interesting point you made, and I want to talk about some figures that I picked up. 40% of the worldwide export market apparently is contributed by India.
Right.
What role does innovation play
Right.
when it comes to ensuring that this, you were talking about meeting a younger sort of age group when it comes to the demand.
Right.
What role does innovation play? How do you innovate, for instance?
Yes, innovation across the whole value chain is important. Whether it is on the manufacturing side, so that involves different textures that you're using, to the kind of colors that you're using, to designing, new age designs. So not using your Persian, Turkish sort of designs, but probably a more contemporary range. So evolution there, to ERP systems, making things more efficient. And again, social media, that's very important, because I think you and me, we pick up, and the first thing that we want to do to know about a product or a brand is look for it either on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook. So that was very important. So across the value chain, I think the adoption of technology, and then I think thinking about the new consumer and what is it that they would like. We're not consuming like our parents did.